way well, being black in Lewisham, I know it's not really about youth violence, but the way being black in Lewisham affects me is that when I enter certain shops, like, I get followed. I don't know if it's, like, because of my school uniform or because I'm black, but I mainly think it's because I'm black.
Does anyone else feel like that?
Yeah.
Is that everyone at this table?
Yes.
Yeah, not really.
But it's
No, why not for you? And then we'll...
Because I haven't had any experiences where my race or my school has really affected me that much outside of school.
But is SMA not banned from Iceland? Does that not affect you anyway?
I didn't really go to Iceland, so it doesn't really affect
Yeah,
me.
but you're not allowed in there anyway.
But since I didn't go there...
Okay, but if you wanted to go there, you wouldn't be allowed inside.
In your
It would
opinion-
affect me in that situation, but it hasn't affected me at all yet.
In your opinion, why do you think that you've been banned? Or maybe from other stores, not you specifically.
Well, not now, because obviously the school has definitely improved. But, like, when it first, like, started out, certain behaviours and certain things caused, like, certain shops to ban us from their premises. But obviously now, it's like the school's actually fine. Most of the people are well behaved, so I don't understand why we're still not allowed in shops at Iceland.
I would suggest that it's not necessarily maybe a thing against your school specifically, even though they are specifically calling out your school with that. But I think there's an issue when we bring it back to youth violence. I think there's an issue around the Lewisham Town Centre, at least, in terms of youth violence. And so they're not likely to go back on a banning order that they've already got, because there's really no need for them. They don't really understand the reasons behind why youth violence occurs in their store or around their store, which it does. But I think it's not really worth it for them to not have that banning order. And it may be the case that it's just unfortunate that it was a St Matthew kid or a group of St Matthew kids that were the ones that made that happen. Do you think it's solely a race thing, or do you think it's...
I think it's
a few other factors?
solely based on the school. But it's like, the school's good, so what are you now basing your, like, what's the word? Like, what are you basing your dislike for us on? Because we're actually a good school now.
How do you reckon they know that, though?
I think it's paranoia. Like, I think in the back of their mind, when they see a student from SMA, they automatically think, oh my gosh, they stole from blah, blah, blah. I feel the need to create this barrier because I'm paranoid. Like, maybe they're not directly, I don't know how to explain it, prejudiced to you, but maybe they're just paranoid.
I genuinely don't think that it's just SMA that gets targeted. I believe it's just because of all the schools in Lewisham and what they've done so far. I believe that's why they have what's called bans on shops and how people are treated the way they're treated.
Yeah, I believe that it's not like the people themselves, it's just Lewisham, because there's many risks and crimes in Lewisham. So
Yeah, I mean, I think shop bans, store bans, whatever you want to call them, are quite useful for us, at least in the police. It means that we can protect those stores in a certain way, because there are what we call our stakeholders. They have a stake in Lewisham being a nice place to be because they need it for the business, things like that. But then also it helps us kind of guide you guys, and that allows us to kind of monitor what you're up to, things like that. Not in a really horrible way. And 99% of children are absolutely fine. Students are fine, but unfortunately there are a few students that will ruin that, and that's why we've got shop bans.
Do you think it's Lewisham in general and all the schools in Lewisham, or do you think it's just certain schools in Lewisham that was good, make Lewisham have a bad reputation?
I don't know if I could say it's a specific school, but I think there are specific students, and they may go to certain schools. But I think all round, every school has got the capacity or the student, that 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, that is going to basically ruin it for you guys, meaning that you can't go to McDonald's, which none of you really can. None of you can go into Iceland, which you obviously can't. And then inevitably there'll be another store, probably like Poundland, that gets hit quite often. Yes. And then from there on, and like you say, it's true because you've seen it. You see it probably every day, and that's the issue itself, isn't it?
I have a question. Why do you think young people commit crimes?
Oh, it's a big one, isn't it? I think maybe a factor is that you are young, and so it's hard to imagine a time in which you won't be young or won't be thought of as young. by law. And the law does help you out a little bit because we try to, well, as police, we do try to help you out. We don't want you to be criminalised immediately for shoplifting or something like that. So it's probably a little bit easier to get away with crime when you're younger. Yeah, go on.
So are you saying that it's a sense of enjoyment basically because we're young or not?
Yeah, and I think maybe when you're younger, you don't really think everything through, and maybe the harm that you may be doing to someone, a shop, a business, an owner, if you're thinking about that way, or just the victim, if maybe it's a robbery, something like that. It's harder to maybe think that step ahead. And that step ahead is what, as adults, you have to think about because it will land you in really deep trouble, maybe where you wouldn't get in such deep trouble. Obviously, if you continuously do it, then that's a different issue. But
So would you be more lenient in punishing like a young person because you think that they're just...
yeah, I mean, lenient, it depends on what you think it means to be lenient on someone. In law, we try not to hammer down on students or young people as much as an adult because, well, there's an expectation that because you're young, you're not going to know as much as maybe an adult would, or you won't be expected to. And so on that front, maybe you'd be a bit more lenient on you for the odd maybe shoplifting or something like that, even though you still will get in trouble. It's not that you won't get in trouble. It's just that you won't be locked up, as you're probably thinking.
Do you think the parents are at fault for youth crime?
I think there's a multi-factor thing going on, isn't there? I don't think there's just one reason. I think it probably is a reason amongst probably a few dozen other things. But if you've got great parents, you can still have a child that wants to rebel and wants to commit crime. And equally the other way around, if you've got parents that are involved in crime, you can have a child that doesn't want to be involved in that themselves. But not that I've got any statistics on me, but unfortunately there are some parents out there that don't value having a child kept safe and well over keeping them out of their hair or something like that. But, generally, even the best parents you could probably ever think of, sometimes it's not enough, sometimes there's other things going on.
Do you think there should be a certain time period where secondary school students are at home to reduce youth violence and crime?
Yeah, I think it would help. I think it depends what age you want to go up to. I suppose secondary school would be 16, but the issue that we have, as say on a police perspective, is that there are a lot of students out at times where don't really have any calls to, and that's where you can find yourself in trouble. I know we were talking a little bit about how students don't really necessarily have things to do, especially in Lewisham. There's not a lot to kind of go and do for free, at least, and I think that's probably that plays into the being out late and being bored. Someone comes up to you, proposes an idea, maybe we should do this, and it's hard to say no if you're really that bored, and then inevitably you'll end up maybe doing something wrong. So I think it probably would be a good thing.
I think actually it depends on the parent, because if it's someone that works late, like works many hours, then obviously like they're doing the best they can. But if it's someone that's just sitting at home, then that's their fault.
Think about it, it's not really the parents' fault because some kids actually rebel and don't listen to their parents, and because their parents are lenient, like the kids don't really care.
That makes it their fault.
I don't think they're
I don't think it's their
Be more
fault.
strict. Why are you being lenient?
No, if you're strict and they don't listen to you, there's nothing more
but
you
if
can
you're
actually
lenient,
do.
then you can do more.
It's because maybe their child has rebelled so much that they're just giving
They're
up.
tired.
Like they're tired. They're giving up. Their child is
Yeah, but
out.
when your child ends up in prison, don't complain.
It's not
You
that they
don't
should-
give up.
They're
It's
not
not
going
that
to
they don't
complain.
care,
They
it's
give
just-
up.
yeah.
Like,
But why do you think they're rebelling in the first place?
Don't like being controlled.
Yeah, they want to.
well, you could say like
They want to be their own person.
or they want to like join gangs or like feel belong.
I feel like if my mum was calling me, like, I don't think, depending on the situation, I feel like it's okay sometimes to like ignore it, depending on what you're doing. Because if you're doing something that you don't want your parents to know about, and you don't worry about you, then
But why are you doing something that your parents shouldn't know about?
Because like there's just some things that you just want to do to like experience it and stuff.
think-
So do you
No, but
believe
if you
that?
can't tell your parents, then you know you shouldn't be doing it.
I don't
Do you
think-
believe that you're a good child, like to your parents? Then do you think that your parents raised you well? Was it your fault specifically?
I would say it's my fault.
I don't think you understand what it's like to be a parent when their child is out and they don't know where they are and they're calling them and they're wondering where they are. They're scared because that's why
No,
they're
but
wondering.
to be honest, we're not parents.
Obviously, but you need to think.
course
You
we're
need to try,
No, but we're not parents, so
You need to
obviously
try to
we're
be-
not going to understand.
you
where
try to be
it's coming from.
empathetic.
Yeah,
If you
try to
have
be
a child
empathetic.
and you're calling them and they ignore you, do you not know how? Like, how would you feel?
Okay, but what about them parents that tell their child to get home at 3:30? Like school
That's
just
the way.
finished. No, 3:02. They want their child home. Is it too controlling or is it just caring?
I'm not going to disagree with you as controlling, but there is, obviously, if they say, okay, come home at 5, they come home at 9.
No, but sometimes I think it's caring,
Yeah.
because certain situations can happen
If your
in
mom
your
told you
area.
to come home at 3:02,
Yeah, 3:83.
That's
Obviously,
controlling.
it's a bit of a drag, but let's say they told you to come home. Let's say school finished at 3. They told you to come home at 4. That's what school crimes could have happened around the school at
Yeah.
a certain time period, so they could tell you to come home out of care.
Especially in Lewisham.
I think it's accessible to ignore your parents' calls because I believe that it could be important, but I don't think you have to always listen to what they're saying. Sometimes you can have your own decision, but you shouldn't ignore them all the time.
okay, but say every day after school they call you to buy meat. Are you going to continue to answer the phone when they call you?
I'll answer the phone, but I'm not going to always buy meat every single time.
No, as in your mum told you, I want the meat, and if I don't get it, you're in trouble. And you answered the phone, so now you know that you had to buy meat.
I'll just make an excuse saying I didn't see
You have to buy the ox.
Why wouldn't you just
But
go
you
buy the
answered
meat?
phone, though.
What's the
But
issue?
you answered the phone.
I wouldn't answer the phone. If every day your mom's calling you
For the
to
same
buy
thing.
meat, for
Yeah.
the same thing, or to get the same thing, then you're gonna know what it's gonna be about.
That's why.
Yeah, that's why I don't answer sometimes.
But do you not think maybe she's doing that so that she can know exactly what you're going to do and where you will be, and then it's a task for you to have to come back, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but if you're a good parent, you should know your child, so you should know I shouldn't be doing that, to be honest.
When your child's outside,
Really?
you don't know what they're doing.
No, but
When you're
My
with
mum
other
knows.
people, they will act irrationally, so you don't really know.
No, but you should trust your child to obviously make the right
You
decision.
should, but then again, other people's opinions and other people's can affect you and what you do.
young people should also called be at home so they're safe and away from crime and danger.
In general, I feel like there should be more things to do outside, like youth clubs and youth groups for young children, as they're just bored. They're bored.
Why do people feel they should be in a gang?
Well, in my opinion, I think that some people go into gangs because they're looking for a sense of community that they may not find at home or find at school. So I think when we think of gangs, we shouldn't always look down on them. I think we should think about, why they're in a gang and if it's for their benefit or whatnot.
But don't you think there are other options to being in a gang,
Yeah.
such as youth clubs, things like that?
Of course, but not everyone is it's not accessible to everyone to be in a youth club. Sometimes the gang they're just out, that they're in the block, they're sitting on the stairs right next to your house. So it's easier to go outside, say hi, rest with them, chill with them, and then find sense of community within them, rather than to travel in somewhere that's probably not even in your region to a youth club that you're only going to stay in for 2 hours.
Cool, but in the long term, is it going to be worth it? Just because it's convenient that, oh yeah, there's a gang right in front of my house, is it actually going to be worth it in the long run? Like choosing that gang rather than a youth club that's actually going to give me like resources, stuff like that, like actual fun trips, stuff like that.
But some gangs do go with a motto like they're basically your family, so in the sense that they stick with you for life. Like you can't snake on them, you can't like do anything against them. So don't you feel more inclusive? Don't you feel more safe and like better for the long run, knowing that they're gonna protect you rather than your family? You could just
Okay, you're saying that they're going to protect you, but if it's a like life and death situation, let's say someone comes with a gun right now and it's between you or them, are they going to pick you? Are they going to save you? No. So is it worth it being
But
part of a gang?
that's unrealistic because the guns are not even legal, first off. Second of all, no, you've never seen a gun
Okay,
in your
carry
life.
on,
You've never seen a gun in your life.
carry on.
I think realistically, your family, and especially with families in like around us, not all families are ride or die the same way a gang is ride or die for each other.
Yeah,
Some
that's
families they'll be like, oh, it's for the best, it was God's will. But other times, I have to ride out for my boy, I have to ride out for the other person in my gang. I feel like there's different levels of love and like the way you like try to keep each other safe in a gang and with a
I have
family.
a question
Of course.
for you guys as well. What love do you think is more important? Like the love that you get from a gang or like family love?
To be honest, I don't really feel like you receive love from a gang. I feel like at the start, they make it seem as if they love you. And they...
With the money and stuff.
With the money, they influence you to do things for them because you're seen as their family. You're the people that they can go to talk to. But at the end, it's going to end up with either death or you're going to be behind bars, in my opinion.
Okay. What you've said is really important. I think two things can be true at the same time. So what you're talking about is what we would consider to be grooming. So usually being in a gang and being groomed go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So you will be led to believe that you are receiving love and
Yeah.
you're receiving things, and you're going to get all these good things. And in the beginning, you'll be offered all these good things,
Yeah.
money, clothes, trainers, phones, tech, all sorts of things. It works for you at the time until they then start needing things back.
Yeah.
You as a police officer, do you guys have organizations that help people phase out of the gang life? Because obviously, once you're in that gang life, there's no really easy way of phasing out. But do you guys offer not only just going to prison, but do you guys offer things to help them?
I mean, we certainly have got certain teams and certain groups within the police where we do try to work with people and young people. In terms of what happens after prison, I can't honestly, off the top of my head, say that we have got any specific groups that do. But we do have, obviously, contact with lots of different charities and organisations.
May I
help
ask?
people who want to help, be
May I
helped.
ask why you think that there aren't any organisations for people that come out of the jail, for them to receive help and stuff like that?
No, I think there is. I'm saying I don't know off the top of my head which organisations it would be.
Do you guys think that going to jail as a gang member helps them change, or does you think it makes them worse when they come out?
That depends. So what we talked about earlier, I think you can easily go to prison and there are going to be influences inside prison that are potentially going to keep you in a gang. You potentially make someone feel like they need to stay in a gang.
But I also feel as if, obviously, if your mum's visiting you, seeing you behind bars, it's obviously, because she's the one that's raised you, you're gonna kind of think to yourself, oh, do I really want to go back and hurt my mum even more, to the point where it's gonna destroy our relationship?
But-
So I feel like sometimes,
But
it depends
not-
how deep you're into being in a gang.
But not all people that are in a gang, some factors of being in a gang may be neglect from your family. So what is there to look for when you go out? There's no one to actually motivate you to stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to bear in mind in the community now, there's very little alternative than being in a gang. You can go really far to go to a youth centre, but what does youth centres really offer? You do activities for a few hours, but you're not making money. It's tough to make friends. So I really feel like the question is, what other alternative is there other than a gang or a family that possibly doesn't care about you?
Education.
You're not in school every single minute of the day. You're in there for 6 hours.
I mean, also, it's not also about what's out there, it's also about yourself. So it's also a thing where you should think to yourself, all right, maybe if I ask this teacher for support, they could support me and maybe have a positive effect and prevent this from happening. So joining a gang.
I think we have to bear in mind, like I said, the community today, no one's really, everyone's looking at right now, what do I want right now, rather than, oh yeah, in 20 years, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, so I need to work towards that. This society that we're in now, I feel like today, okay, I need to be bold, I need to be uptown, I need to make money today, or I'm not gonna have friends because the friendship groups that I want to be in, they have money, and maybe it's their family's money or they're making their own money. Oh, I don't really have any talents, I don't really have anything to push me to make that type of money.
Why do you think people feel like this? Sorry.
I feel like
they
it's,
have to be bold, they have to be uptown.
I feel like it's because of the how we've all been conditioned by each other. I feel like no one's really been like, it's cool to want to revise every day. No one says that. If they think it's cool to be wearing these expensive brands that majority our parents can't even afford, but we feel the need that we need to be able to afford it, but we're still in school, which doesn't make much sense. So that means then we start to think, you know what, I need to make this money today, and I can't do it legally. I don't even have my NI. I have to do something illegal to get this money, and then majority of the time, as well as that, on top of that, there's no really jobs available for children as well as adults. There's not much jobs available, so there's very little ways to make money.
Could it be more common for the police to have a positive relationship with the community and fairs, summer schools and etc.?
So, I mean, I'm a schools officer, so part of my role is we do engage quite a lot with children. We have cadets. We put on a lot of cadet events where cadets volunteer to do things, weekends, weeks away. So, yes. Okay.
But what percentage of people in the school that you work know about cadets or actually do cadets? Because in our school we've had a police officer, but not many of us have come across them and had conversations with them. So what do you think a police officer can do to bridge that gap between them and the students more?
What do you mean in terms of making them more aware of?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they should be coming into can be coming to classes to speak to you, hand out leaflets. As far as I know, a lot of the schools officers I work with do that and are often away at their respective schools, raising awareness of things. So,
how would you feel if you guys had a family member that committed a crime? Would you help them cover it up, or would you make sure justice is served?
I think personally, because I love them and they're my family, I'd probably help them cover it up, because
what if they killed someone? How would you feel about that?
I mean,
could be conflicted, and God doesn't want you to be conflicted, and it could be a test, it could be something, it could be a test of faith.
But in most faiths, God is a just God.
Yeah,
So
God is
he
a
would
just
want
God, so he wouldn't put you in
justice.
any situation where you feel like you're meant to do the wrong thing. So I think it can be a situation that can bring you closer to your faith, and then you can bear in mind, okay, this person had done the wrong thing, and when you do a wrong thing, you need to be punished some way, somehow.
Take accountability.
Yeah, it's really important. So I can like bring you closer to God and bring you closer, make you think about your actions more.
But it's not you; it's your family member.
But you obviously, if you know about the situation and you have a part to play about how it can be dealt with, then you should push them either to go closer to God, or if you're thinking I have to do the wrong thing in this situation, God would never want that. So then
it depends on who you are, because like a lot of people don't believe in God, but me personally, I agree with what you're saying. Like I would encourage the person to turn to God, because from my background and from like the way I've been brought up, like God is center of a lot of things.
Yeah.
If one of your family members or somebody that you really loved was to commit a crime, what would you do?
I'm certainly not going to cover it up.
Okay.
That's definitely not something I'm going to do. So just to try to encourage them throughout the process of speaking to police.
Okay, well,
bye guys.
HV's
Thank you.
HV's out.
Don't do that again.